Our speaker for this series is Cory, a career coach with the University of Utah. Thank you, Crystal, for being with us today. We're excited to learn about cover letters. Sorry. Participants, go ahead and start enjoying your lunch and get ready to learn with us today. Crystal, take it away.
Thank you for introducing my cover building letter presentation there, Becca. I really appreciate it. Yes, thank you to everybody who's attending. I'm really excited. I love cover letters. I know not everybody does, but I do. So I'm excited to share this presentation with you. Those that have attended my webinars in the past will know that I love participation, and I'm going to ask y'all some questions that I'm going to need you to hop in the chat and give me some answers to. So if you want to go ahead and pull up the chat function so we can do that, I would appreciate it. Feel free to ask questions throughout, either through the chat function or the Q&A box. We are going to have a specific question and answer session at the end, but if something's just really puzzling you, feel free to shoot it out there in the middle of the presentation. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. First, I'm going to start with an activity I like to call a single word sum up. I know when it comes to writing cover letters, a lot of people have a lot of different reactions to what that means for them personally. So when you're thinking about all those reactions, all those feelings, go ahead and in the chat box, put one word that sums up all your feelings when it comes to writing about cover letters. Unsure, fluff, ugh. Definitely some common reactions I've had. Frustrating for sure. Getting kind of a negative vibe today, guys. What the heck? Frustrating? We have 2 votes for frustrating. Yeah. Again, this is a pretty common reaction I have when I'm talking about cover letters with people. So hopefully, as I move through this presentation and give you some basics and some skills and some ways to stand out, you can feel a little bit more confident when writing these cover letters. You can understand the purpose a little bit more, so it doesn't feel like as much fluff or that it's as tedious or that it's as annoying as some of you are still saying in the chat box, which I really appreciate your participation in. So something I want to ask you all is, what do you all think cover letters are used for? What is the purpose of them? Why do employers want them? What do you know about them as far as like their purpose? It's more to read for the employer. What else? It's an introduction to yourself. I honestly don't know the purpose of a cover letter, which is totally fine. Tell a story with facts, give them an idea of who you are, get to know you more outside of your resume. Yeah, an attention getter. All of these things are great. The best way I can describe a cover letter is kind of in 2 ways. One is, yes, and you all are still giving amazing answers. Look more deeply at the resume, give some context, supplement your resume. Yeah, all those things. The first thing that I will say about cover letters is that it is sort of like a pre-interview process. They get to know you, the person, a little bit more, right? And kind of building off of that, the second thing is it does give a lot more context into your resume, but your resume is a really concrete list of where you've been, what you've done, what skills you've gained, all those things, right? But a cover letter is really their first instance into who you are as a person, what those things mean to you. So like some of you said, supplementing your resume, getting to know you a little bit more, all of those things. Also, some companies use it as a writing sample. So making sure that, it flows well, the narrative's good, no spelling or grammar mistakes, things like that is also really important for some employers when they're looking at specific job postings. Another question, do you all still think they matter in this year 2020? Go ahead and drop your answer in the chat. We have a vote for yes. Depends on the employer. We have another yes. Can't my QR code just say everything they need to know about me? For surezies, right? Bitmoji or bust, I love it. So actually, I think yes, but also it depends on the company. I will say that, I've heard tale through the grapevine and on LinkedIn and things like that. Well, like Amazon and Google don't read cover letters, so nobody needs them and they're not important anymore, right? Honestly, I out here in Utah at the last career fair that we had, there's like one company that a lot of my students want to work for. So when she had a moment and wasn't swamped by students, I went up and started asking her questions about, what advice can I give my students? They all want to work for you. What should I tell them? And she literally looked me in the eye and said to tell them to write better cover letters. So I think, it really does depend on the company and the position you're applying for. If they give you a spot for your cover letter, if it's an optional thing, I would definitely always recommend that you include a cover letter when you can, because even if they don't typically prioritize it, they being the company in this case, if they have one interview spot left to fill, as far as like their lineup goes, right, and they're choosing between you and another person, and you have some similar skills, if you have a cover letter and they don't, that shows that you're a little bit more interested in the company. That shows you put forth a little more effort, right? Or if you both submitted cover letters, if you write a really good one and they just write like an okay one, then again, that kind of tips the scale in your favor a little bit. So ultimately, it depends on the position, it depends on the company, but I say, why take a chance when you could really enhance your application a whole lot by writing a really good cover letter? So right now we're going to go over the basics of a cover letter, and by basics in this case, I really mean kind of the layout, how it looks, things like that. So again, in the chat, I know you all can't read this super well, which is totally fine, but just looking at it, what are some things that you need to include when you're crafting your cover letter and putting it together? What are some things that you're noticing? Your contact info for sure. So that header at the top, as far as like Connie Tanner and all her contact info, that should be directly copy pasted from your resume. That way that they know they go together. It's kind of a cohesive part of your application. That way it's not like, it says Connie Tanner, but does this actually belong together? It leaves no question in their mind. Who you're writing it to, for sure. I know that job applications sometimes don't always put like who is the hiring manager, who's the recruiter, who you might be reporting to, things like that. At minimum, you need to have the company name and their address up at the top. And then you need to also, when possible, include a direct person that you're writing it to, because that kind of makes you stand out a little bit more. That is just one page, thank goodness, says Adrian. Yes, cover letters are one page for sure. So yeah, I think you're hitting all the main parts. Just a couple other things. Not resumes, that was last week. It's this week and we're talking about cover letters. Cover letters do follow a business letter format. So typically you should have a date at the top. It's not as necessary. As I mentioned, writing it to a specific person whenever possible, at least to the company, is important. And if you're missing who you can write it to, there's a couple things that you can do to try to track down a specific person without like being too creepy about it, obviously. One is you can do a quick Google. If you're applying to a marketing position, you can Google director of marketing and the company name that you're applying to see if anything pops up. Or you could call HR for that company and say, really interested in applying for this position, but I'm not sure who to address my cover letter to. Do you have an idea of who that could be? Because that really puts you on their radar in a good way. Again, it's not totally necessary, but if you want to go the extra mile for a position that you're really, really interested, then you can definitely do that. Because it is a letter, you do need to have a salutation of some kind. In this case, Dear Ms. Brown. The one thing that I will super caution you against using is using the phrase "to whom it may concern." I've had recruiters say the professional equivalent of whenever they read that on a cover letter, they want to just flip their table over. You can get creative even if you don't have a specific person to write it to by saying, "Dear hiring team, dear hiring manager," try to mix it up a little bit. The "to whom it may concern" is definitely worn out a little bit as far as my recruiters have been telling me. Obviously, we have the body of the letter as far as like different paragraphs go, and we're about to jump into what to include in those here in a minute. And then at the end, you need to have a signature. You can say sincerely, you can say thank you can say best, you can say whatever you want. I know some people have brought up in the past, like, oh, well, you need to like physically sign it, or maybe you don't. I don't know what to do. If it's going through an online application, I think it's totally fine to just type your name. You need to have your name in some capacity at the bottom still, because it is a letter. If you're feeling really frisky, I would say you can sign your name on a piece of paper, take a picture of it and then like paste it into your cover letter, but you definitely don't have to. But I've seen people do that before, and I think it looks pretty nice. We do have a question, should it be a comma, not semicolons after Dear Ms. Brown? I mean, business letter format says a colon, but I think that's getting into like the nitty gritty of what business letter actually means. So you can definitely have a comma. I don't think any recruiter would fault you for that. At least I hope not, because I've put commas on all my cover letters. So any other questions about the formatting or how you set up the page for your cover letter? Seeing none, we're going to move on to breaking down each and every paragraph in your cover letter so that you know exactly what to write, you know exactly how it should sound, you know exactly what to include. Oh, sorry, we have one more question before I break into that. Does it need to be an entire page? I've been told my cover letters can be too long. I mean, I think an entire page is fine as long as you still have like your header, who you're addressing it to, things like that. As long as you can fit it onto a page with no less than ½ an inch of a margin around all sides, I think that's fine. I mean, I have seen cover letters that can get pretty lengthy, but I'm also going to give you some tips when I break down these paragraphs to like make sure you're including the right amount of information as well. If it's less than one page, that's okay as long as you have good information in it, but we'll get there, I promise. Hold tight. So for the introduction paragraph, here are the 4 things that you need to include. So 1, you need to state what job you're applying for and where it's at. So I'm applying for a marketing position at MetroNet, for example, right? You need to include how you heard about the job, whether it's through a job board, through the company website, and if you heard about it through a specific person, now is the time to name drop. I know that sometimes people get weird about name dropping because they feel like they're using their name or that they're, you know, I don't know why people get weird about it, honestly. But if you're talking to your Uncle Joe and he says, hey, we have a position open that I think, you know, would be a really good fit, then name drop them. It shows that you have a connection to the company beyond just finding them online. So utilize all the information you have when talking about how you heard about this position. Something that I think a lot of people overlook is people don't ever talk about why they're applying for the job. Why does this position interest you? There are literally thousands of jobs open online all the time. Why are you applying to this one specifically? I know it doesn't seem like that matters, but I actually have a story to tell you all on why that actually does really make a difference. So one of the last institutions that I worked at, they were hiring for the director of the rec center on their campus. And because it was a mid-sized public university, it was a big deal. And they had like 50 people apply for this position for the director of the rec center, right? Of those 50, only 3 people put in their cover letter why they wanted to work at that institution specifically. And only those 3 people got interviews for that role. It really does make a difference. It shows that you put a lot of effort in and that you care, right? Being passionate about not starving is probably not a good reason to why you're applying for this job. Because it's close to your house might not be a great reason. You can connect it to their mission, their values, something about the role specifically that interests you. Just make sure that you include that in the introduction paragraph for sure. And then the last thing that should be in your introduction paragraph is what I like to call the topic sentence. Y'all remember when we were in school and had to write essays, the last sentence of your introduction to your essay should be your topic sentence, or introducing like what the rest of the essay, or in this case cover letter, is about, right? I would say pick your top 2 reasons why you're qualified for the job. I've seen a lot of cover letters where people just try to cram all the information they can into a cover letter, and it ends up not flowing very well. It just seems crammed with information. None of it's really specific or beyond what's on your resume. And if it's not beyond what's on your resume, then you're kind of wasting everyone's time because they could have just read that instead. So when writing your topic sentence, think about the top 2 reasons why you're qualified and introduce those. So for example, you can say, you know, combination of my educational work experience, or my past experiences in marketing, or, you know, whatever you want to say to introduce the rest of your cover letter. That should be how you end your first paragraph. For the body paragraphs, and I have in parentheses an S because for some people that's 1 paragraph, for some people that's 2. It just kind of depends on how detailed you want and or need to get as far as explaining your qualifications to them. But there's 3 things that you need to do when writing these body paragraphs. The first thing is you need to give a brief introduction to what you're talking about. So at your internship site, at your current position, in a volunteer role, during school, you know, whatever, wherever you got this experience and whatever you're about to talk about, it kind of helps you set that scene. You then need to go into a lot of details about how you did the thing that you're talking about that makes you qualified. Again, your resume is very concrete. It tells them on a very base level and very quick snippets what skills you have. But this gives a lot more detail. So for example, in your role, if you planned like this huge community event that had a whole bunch of people come, that's going to be like one line on your resume. But in your cover letter, you can give a lot more details into how did you plan this? How did you organize this? How did you run the event? You know, a lot more details that can show a lot more skills than just what they've seen on your resume. And then once you do all that, you need to talk about why should they care that you had this experience and these skills, right? So you had this community event that had 200 people come. Why should they care? Don't assume that they can make that connection. So you can say, you know, through this experience, I learned X, Y, Z, and I know it's really going to help me doing A, B, C for your company. You know, it shows that you've put the extra thought in to include it all the way around back to the job description of what they're looking for, not just kind of boasting about yourself. And then finally, the conclusion paragraph. Again, 4 things we need to accomplish in this. You reiterate your interest in the position. You can say something to the effect of, you know, I'm really excited about the opportunity to join your company. You know, I'm really excited about, you know, the opportunity to interview for this position, whatever that looks like for you. Restate the main points in your body paragraphs. So, you know, because of these things that I did, I know I'm qualified for this position. You provide your contact information. Usually it sounds something to the effect of, you know, if you're interested in talking about my skills and experiences further, you can contact me at, usually put your phone number and your email because you're not sure of the company's preferences. It's probably going to be email, but just put your phone number. And then finally, you thank them for their time and consideration. It's just good practice to be polite in your business letter format, cover letters. We're going to get through this today, guys. It's a lot of work for them to go through as many applications as they have. So definitely thanking them for their time and consideration. Just in general, being polite can go a long way. One thing I do want to say as far as like a note about when you're writing your paragraphs, and this, I've seen it more when I look at women's cover letters, but I've definitely seen it in men's cover letters too, is there's a lot of like, I think I'm a qualified candidate. I believe I'm qualified for the candidate for this position, right? You should know you're qualified. I'm not saying you have to be like, this makes me an excellent candidate for this position, because that can come off as like a lot on both ends of the writing and the reading of that cover letter. But you can just say, I know this makes me a qualified candidate for this position. I know this gives me the skills to succeed in this job, you know? It's not I think, it's not I believe, it's I know. Any questions or concerns about the paragraph breakdown of cover letters? Yes, confidence is key. Thank you for reiterating that. Cool. So now we're going to move on to, now you know what it should look like. Now you know how, vaguely at least, how it should sound. But now we're going to talk about how to make yourself stand out even more when writing these cover letters. The first thing I want to talk to you about is striking a balance. So when you're writing your resume, it's 100% you. It's your education, your skills, your experiences, your volunteerism, your whatever. It's all about you, right? But as I've kind of alluded to, as I've gone through the paragraph breakdown, it's not all about you when writing a cover letter. Really, it should be about 50% you and 50% about the company. So again, some of those things that I was saying before, connecting to their mission, their values, their way that their company is a little bit different, you know, how you can use these skills at their company, things like that. That's going to really help you strike that balance. And they're going to see that you're drawing connections to them and not just talking about yourself the whole time. It really does make a difference as far as like when you're reading the cover letter, it does sound a lot different. So keep that in mind as you go through it. I also want to say that something that I've seen a lot of people do when it comes to writing cover letters is they just focus on, I guess the best way to say that is just their experiences. I did this, I did that, I gained these skills, this is how it can help you. But that's not as inspiring. So I'm going to show you a short clip on YouTube here real quick to kind of help you zoom out a little bit when it comes to writing your cover letter and see what other things you can infuse in there to really stand out and make a difference. Bear with me for just a couple seconds because I'm going to have to change my settings so that you can appropriately view the video. But I'm going to see what you all think after the video is done. Sorry, one more thing that I forgot to share. This is a 5-minute clip out of a larger TED Talk, and I would definitely recommend you watch the whole TED Talk because I think I use it in my everyday work, not just with students, but for me personally, I think it's really inspiring. Check it out, but for now, here's a 5-minute clip of it.
I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do, 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You're ready to buy a computer from me. All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it proves to us is that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat screen TVs. They've been making flat screen monitors for years. Nobody bought one. And Dell came out with MP3 players and PDAs. And they make great quality products, and they can make perfectly well-designed products, and nobody bought one. In fact, talking about it now, we can't even imagine buying an MP3 player from Dell. Why would you buy an MP3 player from a computer company? But we do it every day. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. When we communicate from the outside.
Give me 1 second again to adjust my settings so that I can see all of your wonderful responses. What do you all think about this applying to cover letters? Why do you think I showed this to you in a cover letter talk? There. Well, let's start with this. How did you all feel about that video? Do you agree with it? Do you not? Where are you at with that? Haley says that she can see how it would make for a compelling cover letter, but it seems fake to do it for every application, which is an interesting take on that. Lots of people have experience, but many people don't have a reason for why they do what they do. Good point, Dawn. Any other questions, concerns, observations? We will be sending a link to the complete TED Talk and a follow-up email in case y'all didn't see that in the chat. Yeah, so kind of what, I'm gonna address both of these points. So a lot of people just go through life and they have these jobs and they just kind of like do what they do, right? But to really be centered in knowing why you do what you do, what your why statement is, can really make a difference for not only how you act on a day-to-day basis, but even how your cover letter comes across, right? Because if you can center why you're applying to this position by saying, this is why I do what I do, and here's how you all fit into this why statement, that really does make a difference. And Haley, I can see how you're making a point for it could feel fake if you kind of force your why statement into every cover letter. But I would say if you truly know what your why statement is, if you know why you do what you do, what your interests are, how that's going to play out moving forward, then it's going to come from a place of authenticity. Now, if you're applying to whatever job that doesn't super align with your interests, values, experiences, like that's cool too. I understand that people need those jobs at some point or another in your life. I've had a few of them myself. You can leave it out. But if it's something that you're really, truly interested in, if it's something that is going to play into your values, your experiences, enhance your worldview, then definitely include your why whenever possible in your cover letter for sure. Any other questions, concerns for discussing your why statement in your cover letter? No is an acceptable answer. Also, I don't know if y'all can hear this like crazy thumping noise that's happening in my house, but a woodpecker is attacking the chimney and it's like pecking on metal. If that happens and you can hear it, I'm sorry. If not, pretend this never happened. All right, seeing no other comments, questions, concerns about starting with your why, I'm gonna move on to the final thing I want you to keep in mind when writing your cover letters is applicant tracking software. For those of you that attended the webinar last week or watched the recording, which I think it's been posted online, Becca will have to confirm that. I talked a lot about applicant tracking software. For those that weren't there last week or didn't watch the recording, which is totally fine, I don't expect you to watch everything. Applicant tracking software in a nutshell is a way for companies to use computers to filter through applications to find the best applicants. I put that in air quotes because if you're not aware of ATS and you're the best applicant, you can get missed, but it's a sacrifice a lot of companies are willing to make. So basically the way it works is they take the job description, they take the application of somebody that applied, the computer or software in this case, scans through both of them and comes up with a match percentage on the keywords in both. If you have a higher match percentage, you move higher up in the pile. If you have a lower match percentage, you move lower down in the pile. Some ATS even take it as far as if you have a low enough match percentage, then it completely locks down your application and recruiters can't even access them if they wanted to, which seems aggressive, but that's how some ATS roll, I guess. I mentioned this in regards to cover letters because even though it is your work, you definitely need to still be matching some of those keywords that are in the job description. And a great place to do that is at the end when I said, why should they care in your body paragraphs, you can directly quote the job description on why they should care about that particular skill or experience. Going through this experience, I learned XYZ. which again can be words directly from the job description, because a lot of them list what skills they want you to have before you apply, which will help me do copy paste the exact job task that will help you fulfill. So that's one way to help boost your ATS. But also, the best way that I've seen people do it is to just write out your cover letter, right from the heart, make sure it sounds as good as possible as far as, narrative, the format, it sounds like you, all those things, and then go back into it and just change some words or phrases to the exact words or phrases that are on the job description. That way, you're not writing with all these constraints and constrictions in your head. You're writing from your heart. You're saying exactly what you want to say, and then tailoring it even a little bit more to what they're looking for. To that end, because of ATS, because every job description is different, because every job at every company is going to be a little bit different from each other, you do have to write a different cover letter for every job you apply for. Don't just change the company name, don't just change the job title, don't just change the address block at the top. I can tell in an instant if that cover letter is written for something else and they just changed the name. It doesn't ring as true, it doesn't sound quite right. And I know that's going to sound like a lot of work, but ultimately, if you're not willing to put in the time to write a new cover letter, do the research you need to, all of those things, should you really be applying for the job? Do you actually want that job if you're not willing to put in the time on the front end? So keep that in mind as you're moving forward through your job application process. I think those are all the comments I had about cover letters. So taking all of these things into consideration, the formatting, how you learned how to write your cover letters, some things to help make you stand out. Again, all these reactions and things that you're feeling, what is one word to drop into the chat about how you're feeling about cover letters now? Braver-ish is one answer, which I love. Or cautiously feeling a little bit optimistic about cover letters. What else are we feeling? Feeling good, just straight good. I love that. How else are we feeling? Like you have a plan. I love that. That's why I break it down paragraph by paragraph to make that a little bit easier. Prepared, nice. I'll take a couple more. Seem to be more necessary than previously thought. Yes, I really do think they make a difference when you know what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, and how it's going to make an impact for an employer. I really do think they make a huge difference. And I've heard that from recruiters that tell me to tell my students to write better cover letters. If only I could get those students to come see me so I can teach them to write better cover letters. All right. Any questions or concerns about cover letters? I don't see anything in Q&A, so y'all can drop it in the chat if you have any additional questions about cover letters. Also, this is the URL to my LinkedIn if you want to add me on LinkedIn to stay connected, if you want to ask me questions. There's also my email. Feel free to stay connected moving forward after the series is over and all of those things. And just as a reminder, this is part 2 of 4. Next week, we're going to be doing interviewing at the same time, and then the week after that, we're going to be talking about networking. Sorry to steal your thunder, Becca, if that was part of your, outro. Any questions?
Well, I want to thank Crystal for coming and giving us some great tactics to conquering cover letters today. I know that even though I'm not going anywhere, don't worry, guys. You'll have to hear my amazing voice and see my smiling face at all of our events coming up very soon for the foreseeable future. Not that I would want to go anywhere anyways, but I feel a lot more confident in taking those next steps when they do occur, and I hope everyone here does as well. I'm going to launch a quick poll, if everyone could take that really quickly, just about our event today. And then additionally, some reminders for coming up for TP Connect. Like Crystal said, next Thursday is part 3 of our job search series sponsored by MetroNet. We will be discussing interviewing. So it is a really important one, how to get over those jitters and really present yourself as keenly as possible. Another reminder is top 10 under 40 nominations and application forms are now open. If you know a young professional living or working in the greater Lafayette area deserving of the award, don't hesitate to nominate them. If you are a deserving young professional, nominate yourself. We support you. Links for those forms and registration for our next webinar will be in our follow-up email from today, as well as the TED Talk link. Thanks so much for joining us today. If you'd like to rewatch the webinar, you can visit our website at tobeconnect.com/events and click on today's event. Continue to stay safe. Go be great for the rest of your Thursdays and have a fantastic week. We'll see you next Thursday.
Thanks again, everybody. I hope to see you next week.